Game 3 in the books. The Pacers need to be much better in Game 4. They need to guard Giannis and shooters better. That's hard. They need to find their flow on offense. That's hard. They need to figure out the Bucks switching defense. It's all challenging, but it's all stuff the Pacers can do and need to figure out. We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Sunday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today we are blessed to be joined by Kyle Taylor, one of my favorites to talk to in the Pacers sphere about the series at this point. Really, what has happened for the Pacers and what just happened in Game 3, the most recent game, the one the Pacers have to react to. It's so much easier to think about changes and adjustments after a loss, and the Pacers just had a painful one. They have a lot to solve, whether it's defending Giannis better, defending shooters better, doing those things in tandem. Lots of actions were thematically challenging for the Pacers on Friday, and their offense equally problematic at times. We get into so many things, adjustments, rotational shifts, a lot that the Pacers need to do better in Game 4, and really for however many games are remaining in the series. Great conversation. Let's just get right to it. Pacers 2, Bucks 1, and yet the Bucks 1 is more recent, had an extremely dominant second half, and has the Pacers in we need to make some changes mode after they made some changes that many did not expect. So many things to get to from Game 3 in Milwaukee, and joining me, the playoff cyclist himself, making his second Locked On Pacers appearance in as many months. It's Kyle Taylor. Kyle, how are you doing? Do you love the playoffs? Do you love that finally there's not 2 days between games? I am thrilled about that.
I am thrilled about that too, and it's great to be here.
Up 10 at halftime. Bucks couldn't make a 3. Pacers had to be feeling great and smiley. Ooh, oof, oof, oof. The last 24 minutes of that game were a disaster. Gary Trent was awesome. Giannis was great. The Bucks defense was sublime. Their switching really gunked up the Pacers for the first time of the entire postseason. Late clock a lot. The snowball effect the Bucks Pacers games have gotten into a lot this season, where Bucks score, Bucks set their defense, set defense gets a stop, Bucks score, goes on and on and on. I mean, you could start a million ways with this because I think they struggled on both ends for that half and was by far their worst half of the postseason so far. But looking back at Game 3, where do you look first for changes the Pacers need to make, either strategically or just rotationally, analytically, whatever, going into Game 4?
So I think the problems started right away in the first quarter. Brook got an immediate uncontested 3. Gary Trent Jr. at the 9:30 mark, and then 40 seconds later got 2 open jumpers. One of them was a very long 2. And in both cases, there were poor to non-existent rotations where, like, for example, Nembhard just didn't rotate off Dame. This is what happens when Dame is on the floor. It's tougher to do that. Nesmith bites on a simple pass fake Trent makes to the corner with Kyle Kuzma. The Pacers were just, I think, a bit overexcited and a bit too inattentive in this game. And that biting on pump fakes thing happened throughout the entire game. Obi did it. Tyrese had, I think there was a possession of zone where Tyrese bit 3 times on the same possession, and the Bucks eventually scored. They need to calm down. I think in general, they were playing very fast and sort of almost too fast, where they were putting themselves in a tougher position to contain and were overrunning some of their assignments defensively. So I would say a bit relax, like Tyrese Haliburton, multiple air balls. Let's relax. Biting on all these pump fakes, relax. So some of that is like a mental and a focus issue, an attention to detail issue, more so than any specific scheme. But I'm sure we're going to talk about schemes too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the panic or rush nature of their defense was because of Giannis, and like that should in some ways be how your brain works. Like, okay, stop that guy first, think really hard about that. But like the play that I talked about yesterday that's really stood out in my mind is Gary Trent had a left corner 3 that was Pacers double Giannis with, I believe, Nesmith and Siakam. And it should be that Giannis hits it to the player on the left wing who throws it to Trent in the corner, that there's an X out to Trent, and then Nesmith coming off the double gets to the other guy on the opposite side. Instead, Nesmith was the only one who realized Gary Trent was open and has to run all the way across the floor. Isn't close enough at all, and he's wide open to contest it. Like, they were very eager to stop what they would consider the most dangerous option, which in some ways you should do that. And it got them really off kilter for the rest of the Bucks on that end of the floor. And so when that happens, that's how Tyrese Haliburton goes, okay, I'm closing out to the shooter who just caught it. And he just fakes, and then Tyrese Haliburton's out of the play. And you're right, it happened multiple times. And like that, it felt like bled to the whole roster. I don't know if it was being on the road, if it was the like anticipation of being up 3-0, but or if it was even, something they've mentioned after every game, like they haven't liked their pace. They want to play faster, and that got them almost too fast. But I agree that there was a little bit of hurried to their game in a way that got them out of their principles or got them out of what was working in a lot of ways.
So there were 2 times. There's the play you mentioned, and there's sort of a carbon copy of the play with one key difference. The play you mentioned, I think, is an AJ Green screen that leads to swing.
AJ Green screens, by the way, were a major problem in the second half of the Pacers.
Huge problem. I think that may be even worth a discussion on its own. But let's do the A and B side by side here. So we start with version 1. AJ runs up, double swing. The first rotation happens. Myles is supposed to X out from he's the low man, and he's the one who's supposed to X out. He doesn't. Wide open 3, knocks it down. Nesmith just can't get there fast enough. Later, it's Obi and Thomas Bryant in the game. Same action, but the difference this time is that Thomas Bryant is in the weak side corner and Obi is the low man. And this time, double swing to AJ, like AJ peels around, having just screened for Giannis, but Obi does X out from the post. The defense recovers a bit. Giannis is very good. He drives to the rim anyway and draws a foul because Bennedict Mathurin has then rotated to fill in the post. And that made me wonder if some of the Pacers' problems were with slower-footed players either not trusting themselves to get out fast enough or being unable to do so. Before the playoffs started, I said I wanted to see, I wrote this in Derek Kramer's Pacers blog. I wrote that I wanted to see more bench units play centerless with lots of shooting on the floor. We've almost never seen that. I think we've gotten maybe 3 minutes of lineups like that through 3 games. Those kinds of possessions where the Bucks have fast-footed, rangy, switchable shooting on the floor, and the Pacers have multiple slow-footed and or non-shooting players on the floor, makes me feel like they should be trying that. Because if the Pacers are going to be that willing to put themselves in rotation, then they have to have players on the floor who can and will rotate.
Do you think the groups you are describing can defend Giannis well enough in the systems the Pacers are trying to execute, which is a lot of 4-5 switching, a lot of doubles in the post, the wall every time he takes it across the timeline himself? Can they do that without a true 5? Like, there's not a lot of size if he decides to actually just attack those things.
No, there's not a ton of size, but we are talking about units that would be something like TJ, Aaron, Jarris, Obi, Pascal. So it could actually be, and that's a fairly big group through like the
wing. It took Jarris away last game.
Yeah, right. And I think that was a mistake. I thought Jarris had some good offensive possessions attacking zone. I thought he played Giannis as well as you could have reasonably expected him to. And part of what playing Jarris does is it means that Aaron and Pascal have a break, which is essential. I mean, Pascal, I thought, got gassed by the end of that game, of game 3.
And he was the only guy who could score.
Yeah, right. And it's just, you're asking so much of him. You need some of these off possessions so that when, Siakam can truly catch his breath and then go back at it later. So yeah, I would have kept Jarris out. I would have kept him out on the floor and in the rotation. But fundamentally, yeah, I want to see them try it. I mean, Tony, I'm not arguing that this is like the obvious answer that's going to work. I am saying we have a couple pieces of evidence. One, that these small ball bench units did work in the regular season, and they should be willing to try them. While those units haven't played much together and the offensive chemistry is going to be worse, fundamentally, the Pacers have only alternatives. None of them are great. You can't shut down one thing completely and leave another, open. You have to choose between the lesser of two evils on offense, so to speak. And like I said, I want to see them try versions of lineups like that and figure out, is this something we can go back to? Or another option would be not putting yourself in such rotation.
Yeah, and it's tricky with the other part of this that you brought up, the shooters becoming a screener part of this. When you go large is a lot of ground to cover for any of their larger players, even a Jarris, even someone else. And I want to go to that now. How many screens did AJ Green set in the second half to you? Did you even hand track this?
I didn't hand track it, but these have been a problem all series. And the coverage is kind of unusual, I think, where we have seen multiple times. I know Caitlin and Samson talked about this after their game 2 debrief. They could have talked about it after game 1 because the same action or the same scheme happened in game 1 too, and it happened in game 3, where often Tyrese is guarding AJ Green. And even well before AJ has set the screen, and something AJ is doing very well is slowing down. He'll run up, slow down before he sets the screen, sometimes change the angle of the screen. And whether Tyrese is calling out that angle and side of the screen correctly or not, I'm not sure. But he's jumping way up beyond to show. Only occasionally is the on-ball defender shading Giannis back toward the help that Tyrese is providing. Very often, they're just completely giving up one side of the floor. This happened with Dame, too, by the way, where AJ set a screen for Dame and Nembhard just opened his hips up, straight line drive with the right hand to the basket. So these screens from AJ Green it's perplexing that this mistake keeps happening, where the on-ball defender is opening their hips up the wrong way. AJ, like I said, is doing a good job slowing down and I think masking exactly which way he's going to set the screen. I personally, this is what I said earlier, I would be a little bit slower. I would slow down if you're Tyrese or TJ, the guy guarding AJ Green, wait a little bit longer and contain a little bit more slowly. Again, we're often talking about Giannis at the 3-point line. So if the option here is to back up a little bit and contain more loosely, that's okay. If it's Dame, that's a different story. I'll grant that, but it's not Dame almost ever. It's Giannis. So to me, slow down.
Yeah, and
it's been devastating. I really it's devastating.
And when they open up the hips and that drive comes, the guy who's supposed to be ready for the AJ Green pop has to come in and help, or get ready for a shooter rising from the corner, or be ready to help on an X out if that does or does not happen, which we already talked about. Like it keeps your brain occupied as a defender just as much as your feet, and they just were unable to at all recover to that. I mean, they scored 18 points in the third quarter. I talked a lot about offense yesterday, but 39 allowed is equally like, oh boy, like you can't, you lose the game if you allow 30 points a quarter, basically. And they allowed 39, and it was like easy for the Bucks. They did the same thing over and over and over. Stop it, right? Stop it, or we're going to keep doing it. And any kind of shooter type Dame you mentioned, like I think Trent could be the screener and this could be effective too, will cause the Pacers similar stress because of what you're talking about, and that they haven't been able to, whoever the attacker is, has gotten a ton of space from it, and the screener themselves is causing an issue too. And they just, this is a theme from this segment. We're too rushed, and they need to be more rushed on offense and less rushed on defense. There we go. That'll be the title of this episode.
Do you think the third quarter was more about the offense or more about the defense?
Offense, totally.
I thought that Tyrese should have been much more prepared for the degree he was being forced left in that quarter, because it wasn't just that the Bucks were spamming similar actions and similar alignments on their offensive side of the ball. The degree of it's like wrong to even call it shading. I mean, there were times that Tyrese's defender was parallel to the basket, and like perpendicular to the midcourt line. And I mean, completely giving him left-hand drives, often with a guy showing some amount of help in the lane to dissuade him. But the stuff like the not shots, the pass outs on Tyrese's drives that he got so much criticism for in this game often came off these left-handed drives where he would get near the rim, but on his left hand, and either didn't want to switch hands, didn't feel comfortable with the left, or in some cases, never looked at the basket to begin with. I thought there were multiple times, not just the one that sort of the broadcast replayed and that people will remember, but going back to the earlier parts of the game, multiple times Tyrese didn't look at the basket enough. And I would argue there were other teammates of his who didn't look at the basket enough either. Myles, Nembhard.
Miles and Obi were the other two to me that was like, you gotta go out there.
Yeah. So it was like you're talking about spamming the same things over and over again. It was on both ends. They were spamming similar similar things on both ends, and the Pacers continued not to be prepared for it. And I thought the most concerning issue with the offense was the lack of consistency in off ball actions. I didn't think on rewatch, I was less impressed with the Bucks off ball defense than I expected to be. It wasn't as bad as games 1 and 2, but Dame especially just kept getting lost off ball in this game. And when the Pacers were involving him in off ball actions, I mean, he just didn't stand a chance very often. But the Pacers put themselves in worse and worse shape because they would, not get a stop on one end. The Bucks set their defense, and then the Pacers just passing it around the arc, going nowhere, not running anything at all. Flare screens, like these default actions that the Pacers showed in games 1 and 2 did not crop up as readily in game 3, and they have to in game 4.
Everybody, quick little break to talk about Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are here. There's no better time to turn your sports knowledge into real cash with Prize Picks, the top destination for daily fantasy action. Prize Picks makes it simple. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even mix and match players across basketball, hockey, baseball, and you're in for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. For example, Nikola Jokic for more than or less than 25 points, or Jaylen Brown for more than or less than 4 assists. Turn your hot takes into tickets with their championship series. Every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Takes 2 ticket sweepstakes. Could get you a +1 VIP trip to the ship. Connor McDavid, is he going to go more or less than a goal? The app makes it easy to build a lineup, less than 60 seconds. They have discounts on Flex Friday and Taco Tuesday. And when you win, you get paid fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Run your game. They were so good, too, to me, in game 1 especially, but a little bit in game 2, of like occupying those players with really good cuts, like along the baseline or coming in from the wing while the drive was happening, or like while the action was developing on the other side. There was very little of that. And that, I think, is part of why Haliburton's drives were seeing some volume of traffic, is there wasn't that occupation or thinking or just like putting stress on the rim with a non-ball handling player in a way that they were doing. Like Bennedict Mathurin was awesome cutting early in this series. I never thought I'd say that about him being like his primary source of value, but Toppin's had some nice cutting moments. Obviously, with his vertical spacing, he has the different elements he can add there. So I agree with that too. And the thing about Haliburton's pass outs on drives, he did it over half the time this regular season. You and I looked it up. His playoff numbers were about like similar-ish, but we're not in game 3. 80-something% was it? Like 4 out of 5 drives he was passing out of. His very first one, the one that I thought was the weirdest, he was still facing the basket and he whipped it to the corner. But what's almost more perplexing is when he gets in the lane and then does a jump pass where he turns around midair because you can't shoot. You're not even looking at the rim elevated with the ball in your hands. Like, it's very easy for a defense to know a pass is coming, go find some. Like, it obviously adds value because he is a great passer, but it's not adding value in that you're not taking a shot that we've seen him make before, and you're making it easier for the defense to stop whatever's coming next. And the flow, the stagnation, the whatever you want to call it, people use the term station to station. It didn't feel like that to me, but like, it was just not there. He's got to actually be a threat to score and have some threat coming with him for that to be a useful thing for the Pacers. And I go back to his return game to Sacramento all the time. I talk about this way too much. After the game, the Pacers lost, they got smoked. And a Kings reporter asks Malik Monk, hey, what'd you guys do to slow down Ty so much? He said, we'd let him go left. He can't go left. And I was like, wow, he was very open to tell us that, right? And that has still his whole career been what a lot of defenses want to do. And at his best, he can wiggle into the lane and hit a floater, or, not jump past, but like keep a dribble going and hit somebody with a dart that they can immediately shoot off of instead of slowing it down slightly by jumping. I'm rambling too much to say, like, he kind of played into the Bucks' hands too much is how I would describe it. And the off-ball actions you're talking about didn't do anything to help him not do that.
I agree. I think about game 1 where he got off to a little bit of a slower start and tried to get himself going by taking mid-range shots. Ironically, in this game, he was getting deeper into the paint and passing out more frequently. I thought this was his worst game by a lot on both ends, because he, like you're saying, he compounded the problems. And then even when he did the thing he's supposed to, that he knows he wants to do, drive, he's talked about this many times in the media, when he did the thing he wants to do, he looked away. And this is like, I would put it this way. His volume of threes, I think, could increase, but the quality of them has been pretty good. I think he's just missing. Inside the arc, I actually think his quality has been worse. Where when he's looking for a shot, he's looking for the pull up, the turnaround, these tougher shots, and looking off the ones at the rim, like floaters, things like that. Way back when, Tyrese hit a couple left-handed floaters. Hey, I would love to see that become a part of his game, because if he's going to keep getting shaded to his left, he has to be able to put up shots in the lane from that position. And like you're saying, his lack of threat to do so allows the rest of the Bucks defense to play looser on him and tighter to the rest of the shooters, so that when he jumps to pass, there isn't an advantage there for him to tackle.
And in some ways, when you're playing a switch heavier in this game in particular team, like a player like that's gonna be like, okay, let's wait and see what the matchup develops into for my teammates and stuff. Like, you can't do that. The Pacers shouldn't ever want to do that. They need to go concepts quick. Like, even when they were getting deep in the clock in games 1 and 2, they had an advantage somewhere. Like, they had a fractured defense to attack. They weren't doing that at all in this third game. So this brilliant self-creator at times couldn't self-create or be brilliant, right? There was a lot of cutoff options, and I agree it was his worst game of the series in a way that really hurt them. And it didn't help either that on a similar quality of shots to game 1 and 2, Myles Turner his shot was gone in this game.
Yeah, it was bad. I am sort of shrugging my shoulders because he's got to shoot, and he usually did, but he didn't always.
Sorry. They were early in the game, I guess a lot of the series, the Bucks are like panicking about his pick and pops too. Like, they are really dead set on trying to get out to him, and that's why his passing's been really important, like from the high post and the top of the key. But it's because they think he can make it, and so when he gets the chances, he has to actually make it. So they keep doing that, because if they're just going to let him settle for 12 threes, like, yeah, I watched him beat Detroit because he did that, but like, he went 1 for 9 last night. Like, it killed them.
Yeah. Listen, I default to averages, and I look at the quality of his shots, and I'm like, usually that would be 3 to 5 going in, not 1. And if the Bucks are going to keep playing so far off him, he's got to keep shooting. The thing that bogs down the offense overall is when the team, and Myles is one of the chief culprits of this, is when the team turns down their first open look. When the Pacers do this, when they don't take the first open look they generate, everything gets messier, because when you've already got the defense out of position for a good shot and you turn it down, now you're giving the defense more chance to recover. There's a possession where the Pacers get the Bucks in rotation. Aaron and Andrew both turn down corner or wing threes, passing back and forth to each other. Obi gets the ball in the other wing, and it's slightly less open, and he misses it. And it's one of those things where I watched and I was like, you just have to take the first open shot. In addition to take the first open shot, off-ball actions, this game featured less cross-court passing, those skip passes that I think have really given the Bucks trouble in game 1 and 2. Not as many this game. And this is another part of when you can afford to shade Tyrese one way, not, panic on his drives, you are accordingly closer to those corner shooters that he would be kicking the ball to on those drives. All of these problems compound, and the snowball effect of like offense to defense to offense went in the Bucks' favor completely.
The snowball effect. The snowball effect is only supposed to be a problem for the Pacers against zone, not just like every generic possession against the Bucks. That was just brutal. We kind of touched on AJ Green already, but like, can they actually stop Giannis and the shooting? Because like, the Bucks led the league in 3-point percentage for a reason. Like, how would you balance that differently?
No, they can't stop both. After game 1, you said they talked about wanting to both stop Giannis at the rim and stay out to shooters.
Okay, guys, good luck.
Yeah. It's like, if you could do that, you would be like the best team in the league. Like, that's incredible. The most valuable shot the Bucks are frequently generating is Giannis in the restricted area. Those handful of straight line drives where there's no wall, or where they get cross-matched and it's Thomas Bryant on him instead of someone who has a chance to stay in front of him more reliably, those are the ones that they have to weed out. You can't, the Pacers don't have the personnel to fundamentally make life truly difficult on Giannis. However,
does anyone?
They do have the personnel to stop the very, very easiest of his drives or make life harder. It's very difficult to take charges in those positions, and you're going to wake up with bruises all over your body. There were a couple times I thought Aaron almost tried to or came close to drawing a charge, but didn't. So the thing that I would be most concerned about is the 6 to 12 points a game of Giannis free to the rim, unobstructed, with a completely favorable matchup. Outside of that, the second best look the Bucks reliably create are these wide open threes. And like, newsflash to Pacers fans, the Bucks are having a poor shooting series. We have not gotten a positive Bucks shooting variance game from their perspective. We've only gotten the negative ones. And the longer the series,
game 2 is at 40%, wasn't it?
Game 1, they were at 20 something. It was their third worst shooting performance of the year. 40 something for the Bucks is like a much more typical game than 20 something for the Bucks.
Yes, that is true.
And if the series goes on and on, the longer the series goes, the more likely it is that the Bucks will eventually have a game where they just hit 50% of their threes. And that shot is extremely valuable. Personally, my rank order is the most obvious, stop the most obvious Giannis mismatches in the post, then stay home on shooters, then the next level of Giannis, like trying to create advantages in the mid post and almost at the basket. And finally, if they are ever doubling, if they're ever doubling on Giannis in the mid range, I'm going to lose my mind, because he's become a much better jump shooter. But of those options, that is the shot that they should be living with compared to the other two.
Math. Don't we love math?
Yes,
how close
I do love math. Thank you.
Who wants to look at graphs talking about basketball? Me, Kevin Durant. I want to look at graphs talking about basketball, and so does every NBA team.
It's still playing in the playoffs. You can see it with your eyes. What are you think about what you are most scared of. And it's Giannis dunking, very scary. Gary Trent wide open on the wing, very scary. Giannis in the mid range, he can make that. And this is basketball, man. Like, sometimes great offense beats great defense. He rises up and knocks it down. Like, you shake his hand, you run the other way, and you try and get a bucket. Like, that's basketball.
We have gone long on lots of stuff, which is good. So we're going to have to go shorter on the rotation. Cliff notes from me. 1, less Thomas Bryant. Don't care who it is instead. If it's more Myles Turner, if it's more Jarris Walker, if it's more what you talked about, small ballish stuff with Top and Siakam, which they went to last year a lot against the Bucks. That Bucks team did not have Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously. Whatever, like, some less Thomas Bryant. He's actually, to his credit, been like kind of a lot better than I thought he would be if they used him in this series, and is still probably not worthy of 21 minutes. Like, I thought, what he playing game 2, 7 or 8? Like, that felt perfect. Go to that. Again, that rotation felt better. To me, if you're going to play Shepherd because of Dame and because of the stress you're putting on your wing defenders guarding Giannis, that's fine. But, like, it's also got to be a little less, and it's also got to be maybe like Dame is out there, but Giannis isn't, kind of bench groups. And they just need more shooting with these units that have McConnell plus Mathurin or McConnell plus Toppin or whatever. And that requires playing Nesmith for sure with those bench groups more often. Maybe get him out quicker with Mathurin coming in quicker, and then getting Nesmith because he's the only starter shooter level guy that if they're going to play Thomas Bryant, they can really do to add shooting to the second unit to me. So I think that would be something I would explore is, it's been it was their second sub in games 1 and 2 was Mathurin would come in for Nesmith. TJ McConnell would come in for Andrew Nembhard. This time their second subs were McConnell for Nembhard and Bryant for Turner. Right. And that was way earlier. And I thought that I don't know what their big shift was. Myles wasn't playing very well. Nembhard did have some early fouls, but I thought that was not something they should get back to in the next one.
In after the earlier games in the series, I thought the Bucks needed to go strength for strength and run their best lineups against the Pacers' best lineups.
They did it.
And the Bucks have started to do that. And like, newsflash, I would fight fire with fire. Those better Bucks units are the ones with, Trent, Green, Giannis. That trio in the regular season had a plus 21 net rating. that's incredible. The Bucks they returned to it much more in game 3 after not playing it very much at all in game 2. The Pacers should fight fire with fire. When you run out these bench units with no shooting at all, the Pacers did that yesterday with Bryant, Nembhard, and McConnell on the floor at the same time at one point. That is so there are 2 points here. Fight fire with fire, play your best units against the Bucks' best units. Part 2, avoid these catastrophically bad lineups in terms of lacking shooting. There's a possession yesterday where the Bucks are sort of in rotation guarding the Pacers' perimeter shooters, but none of those players are perimeter shooters. So the Pacers just wind up passing the ball around the arc for no reason. The ball winds up in the corner with McConnell, who, if that had been another player, would have taken a 3, but he doesn't. So that's the cliff notes from me. I'm probably a little bit more on the side of no Thomas Bryant at all. And I thought Ben Shepherd actually gave quite good defensive minutes. I like your idea of playing him when Giannis is off the floor, but Jarris, I think, should be in for the reason I said earlier, which is you have to spell, and you can make the same argument about Shepherd and Nembhard, frankly. You have to spell your best defenders a little bit of time to catch their breath so that, let's say we get a close game in the fourth quarter, your best players have the juice to sustain the physical toll in the post that Giannis is he's gonna sort of force on you, the speed that the Bucks perimeter players can play with, and Shepherd and Walker give you a chance to have Siakam and Nembhard a little bit more rested. Those are the places that I would go. The rotations to me are, like I said, avoid the catastrophically bad ones. But apart from that, my feeling is like these other things we've talked about matter a bit more.
Well, last year they played Jalen Smith too much in game 1, and they went away with that very quickly. So it is plausible to me that we see a big shift in the reserve front court group in game 4, if history tells us anything. But history also told us they would not play 10 players, and they've played 11 players at times in this series. So I'll be fascinated to see. Look, game 4 is going to be a lot. To me, like if the Pacers make a lot of adjustments in game 4 and still kind of get shellacked, I don't know how good they should be feeling coming back to Indy. I think it's going to be the most revealing game of the series so far.
I agree.
It'll be fun. Can the Pacers figure out the honest plus shooters thing and probably be the first team to really do so? Can Tyrese Haliburton get going? Will Myles Turner make his shots? Oh boy, will I tell you tomorrow, way late in the night, because this game tips off at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time for some reason. And then game 5 is at 6 Eastern. What? Look, I understand that the playoffs have all the stars in them and the 1 seeds get good TV slots, but like, my God, have the Pacers and Bucks not had fun TV, Kyle? This isn't fair. This isn't fair to us.
I was very surprised by the Tuesday 6 p.m. NBA TV start. That's pretty ridiculous. Dame and Giannis are both healthy. The series is competitive. That one I don't understand at all.
Well, TNT tomorrow. Kyle, thank you very much for the time today. Where can people find you? You right now? That didn't happen last time I had you on here. And the things you say about the Pacers.
You can find me at one Kyle Taylor on Twitter or Blue Sky. And I have been writing a little bit for Derek Kramer's iPacers blog. And I wrote about the lineups that I wanted to see and that I referenced in this podcast right before the playoffs started. So if you want to take the time and sort of build your own small ball shooting bench unit, I have a fancy infographic you can use to do that. Yeah,
Kyle writing plus Derek graphic work is an unfair duo. I cannot compete with this. I need aid. I will do a podcast after that game. I'm not sure where. I have to get up extremely early Monday because of Fever training camp. So probably in the hotel room because I have to rush back. But alas, it'll be quick. I'll be in Fiserv again. Thank you all so much for listening today. See you very soon.